Welcome back to The Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. Today's story is crop circles. Where do they come from? Who makes them? Why are they here? This is a story that transcends the ages. Going all the way back to the 1800s, there have been published reports of crop circles, these strange formations that have been found in fields all over the world. Most of the crop circle phenomenon has been located in England. There are hot spots around the world, but this is really where we see the vast majority of crop circles being created. We see the vast majority of any sort of scientific analysis done on crop circles in England. We see the most amount of press come out of England, of English media. But the story really starts has been connected to a story that was published in the early 1800s of the mowing devils. So we'll show you a clip here. This publication, this print media that was published back in the 1800s shows a little devil character seemingly cutting an oval shape into the fields. Now, these reports of these strange geometric shapes have gone back so long that we can find them over 200 years ago in these publications. Reports of these strange shapes finding their way into fields and geoglyphs and things like that clearly are very ancient. The Nazca lines of Peru, we have these giant glyphs. In fact, many of the crop circles have been related to historical and cultural connections for different groups all around the world. We've had crop circles with yin-yang symbols, crop circles with Native American seeming symbols, crop circles with almost copies of the Nazca geoglyphs. So the crop circle formations themselves have been widely connected to many different cultures over the ages, even if they have been almost exclusively found in this region of England. Now, in the early 1970s, there was a large uptick in crop circle formations in England. These are spheres, circles, arcs, geometric patterns of all kinds. Sometimes they resemble animals, sometimes they resemble snakes, sometimes they resemble models of what could be the solar system. Just recently, a few years ago, there was a crop circle or a crop formation, we might have to call it, that seemed to be a blown up image of a virus. Many people believe that it was the coronavirus specifically. Now, whether you believe that or not is completely up to you, but we can show that image now. So these crop circles in 1970s, there was a large uptick in these crop circles. The English media had put out a story that these were all fabrications and hoaxes done by two gentlemen, Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. We could show an image of them here. Now, these men claimed that they were taking a rope and they were taking a pencil or a pen and taping it to their hat, and they were walking around stomping on the crops, laying them down into these formations, essentially freehand. They said that they were getting their alignments by looking at the pencil on their hat or a pen on their hat that was taped to their hat so they could get these really perfect straight lines. And this was broadcast all over the world. It was in American media and Asian media, African media. When this story came out that the UK published, once people blamed Doug and Dave, as they known to become as they're now known in the UFO circles, once that blame was put off onto these men, very little scientific investigation was done by the scientific community into crop circles. But most people were not convinced. There was a news outlet that actually recorded them, quote unquote, making a crop circle. And when that crop circle was viewed by the public, they said it was terrible. The quality of it was really bad. The geometry of it was really bad. It looked like a mess. And they were supposedly experts in this and had done hundreds of crop circles all around England, or at least that was the claim, that all these crop circles, they were essentially responsible. Later on, they published that, well, actually, they were responsible for a lot of them, but then they were copycats that saw their crop circles and figured out how to do it. But essentially, the quality of these crop circles were not very good that they were showing the media. The quality of the crop circles that we're really fundamentally talking about today have these extremely tight weaves. They are laid down in these perfect geometric patterns. Some of these patterns expand over acres of land, and we could show some clips of the precision of these crop circles and the precision of the imagery. Now, as this story sort of unfolded, many people were put off by the stream of media saying that they were all hoaxes, there was nothing to it, they're all man-made, there's just a simple, logical explanation. But some people on the fringe doubted that. In fact, many in the UFO community openly admit there are tons of UFOs seen in close proximity to these formations. These formations have been found to appear overnight. The farmers were having, thousands upon thousands of dollars of crops destroyed. After the farmers found these crop circle formations in their field, so many people would come to look at them that many farmers decided simply to destroy them. If they left them, a lot of times they would still be harvestable, but in these green crops, they decided it was just less stress and less of an annoyance to simply destroy them. So there were many groups, crop circle investigators, that came out and decided to start doing aerial photography of these crops. So they radio to each other when they find a crop. They get up in an airplane, they take these beautiful aerial shots of these crop formations before the farmers can destroy them. So at least there's a record of the image, even if there's no scientific analysis done to the crop itself. Now, this went on for many decades. It's still going on today. Every year, crop circle formations are found worldwide. In England, it seems to have had a downtick in the recent years. I've not seen as much press about the crop circle formations, but be assured, many of them are still happening every year. I believe that was an upswing for a time, and then now there's this slight downswing, either that or there's just far less reporting than what we would normally expect. But I want to really get into the analysis of these crops. Are they real? Are they fake? I think it's quite obvious that many of them are fake. Unfortunately, we now have a situation, the same situation we have with extraterrestrials, where real investigation into UFOs or aliens has really been sidelined by the media. So you can go online and type in "real gray alien" and you will see hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fakes, forgeries, masks, photoshopped images, hoaxes. And this really muddies the water of actual investigation. Crop circles are now used as a sales tactic by many large companies, where they pay a group of people they go out, they string a field, they do all their alignments with precision equipment. They come in, they stomp down the crop, and then they take photographs of it, aerial photographs of it. And this can be dozens or hundreds of people involved in making one single crop formation, and it can take several days, sometimes weeks, to create these art, these media pieces. Now, these fake crop circles that are now being purchased by large mainstream companies are for the sole purpose of selling products. We can show you a few. So now you have an issue where you have multi-million and billion-dollar companies paying to create fraudulent crop circles, and you also have the hoaxers that are going out making their own. So we really have this binary issue with crop circles. We have the fakes, the obvious fakes, forgeries, and then we have the anomalous. And for now, we'll just talk about these anomalous crop circles. For instance, we could talk about the Arecibo message. So in the crop circle community, the Arecibo message was sent in 1974 from the Arecibo telescope. Now this was an interstellar message that was sent out via radio waves. It is a binary message, and encoded in that binary message is a slew of information about the human race, a little bit about our DNA, our evolution, the building blocks of life on Earth, how we sent the message. There's a little piece of information in that binary code that shows what planet we're from in our solar system. This was sent out into interstellar space with the assumption that one day, perhaps thousands of years in the future, if there is a civilization out there, they might collect that piece of information and be able to respond to our future generations. But it was only a few decades later that near the Chilbolton radio telescope in England, there was seemingly a response, and we can show that as well. The Arecibo message was almost duplicated perfectly with only slight changes to this crop formation, including the planets that were inhabited, the size and shape of the occupants of the supposedly this society or whoever sent the message. And by the way, somebody put the message out there. I mean, they etched it in a crop. So whoever responded, human or otherwise, the building blocks of life are just slightly different. DNA has a massive difference to it. So this looks like a one-for-one answer to this message that was sent in 1974, and it was laid right outside of a radio telescope. Now, this radio telescope facility supposedly has many security cameras. It's a secure facility for radio communications, and not a single photo or video was released by this radio telescope of the surrounding area during the crop formation. So if you've got this hoax, supposedly a bunch of people went out and made this formation, you should have a myriad of information from your security cameras that you could release. You should have cars coming and going, people coming and going, but none of that was ever released, and it's in very close proximity. We can actually show a clip of it to the Chilbolton radio telescope. So that wasn't the only formation that was found outside the Chilbolton telescope. It was actually 4 different formations. One is a picture of what looks like a face. One is an answer to the Arecibo message. And then there are 2 more crop circles or crop formations. One has been come to known as the Crabwood Formation. It depicts what everybody agrees is the atypical gray alien. And then the other is a strange formation that seems to be a duplicate of the communication technology that was in the response to the Arecibo message. So at the very bottom of the Arecibo message, we showed how we transmitted the message to space. We had a diagram of a radio telescope. In the response to the message, there was this strange shape in the same location. So supposedly this is their telecommunications technique. And then there's a blown up image that was found nearby in the crop that shows this odd shape, which is extremely intricate with many circles and arches. So I want to get to the Crabwood binary code message. So the 4th message in the sequence of messages, or one of the 4 in the sequence, is a large picture of a gray alien, and it was depicted in the same technique, the same style that we used to send television communications. So we used to send television communications with these lines. If you ever had an old TV and it was, let's say static was playing, you could see the lines across the television. This was essentially the format that we used to send these television communications, and the Crabwood binary code message was designed to replicate those television communications. in the hand of this supposed gray alien, there is a sphere. It's a spherical shape with a spiral inside, and in that spiral are many laid down squares, rectangular shapes. Some are laid down and some are up. Somebody noticed this and realized that this may be some sort of attempt to communicate. And what they found is that if you decode the flattened and raised areas of this sphere with the spiral inside of it, it actually spelled out a message. I'm going to read that message to you now. In the Crabwood Formation with the binary code message, it says, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there is good out there. We oppose deception. Conduit closing." Now, some of the letters were raised to, it seemed that they were in a capitalization format and some were in lowercase, but that is the bare bones of that message. Now, does this mean that, all of these crop circles are real, they're communications from space? I can't say. I don't make them. I have no idea who does. But when you find this sort of detail that is inside these crop formations, we have had crop formations with pi encoded into the formation. We've had crop formations that seemingly show eclipses, crop formations that seemingly show astronomical alignments and the revolution of our solar system. The complexity as well as the scale of these formations. I'll give you a quick piece of information. There was a formation that was witnessed by a pilot in England. He was flying, he flew past the field, he turned around, came back in less than 1 hour. There was a massive formation with, I believe it was dozens of circles. The amount of people, the amount of precision, the amount of timing that you would need to create a formation like that in an hour is so profound, in less than an hour, that it really raises a lot of questions on whether or not these are being made through some anomalous means. There has been some scientific research into these crop formations, whether they be hoaxes or whether they be legitimate unknowns. So there was a doctor, Dr. Levengood. He was a biophysicist. He did a lot of research into cosmic rays. That was part of his standard scientific background. And he essentially looked at the seed heads of crop circles. So they took samples from inside the crop circle, they took samples from outside the crop circle, and they studied the difference between these seeds, and they found a variation in germination, a variation in growth rate. They found some radioactive materials in the soil of the crop formation. They found that some of the soil was hydrophobic, so it wasn't growing properly, it wasn't holding water. They found that some of the microbial life was dead. So the soil seemingly was dead inside the formation. Outside it was living. They found some crystallization inside the formation. And these scientists, multiple scientists, including Dr. Levengood, and some institutions that collected the samples and studied them, found that there was this anomalous energy, what they call anomalous energy. When these studies came out, Neil deGrasse Tyson had made some comments about crop circle formations being hoaxes and things like that. And then he went on a news broadcast at one point and was asked about it. And he essentially said, well, you could just microwave the crops. You could just take a helicopter with a microwave transmitter and microwave them. You can lay them down and make your formations. The problem is that technology has never been available to anyone, and no scientist has ever replicated the capability of just simply flying over a crop, beaming it with microwaves, and laying it down. These crops have shown evidence of electronic disturbances to batteries, watches, cameras. Many people say that they can feel a distinct difference in the energy when they enter these circles. Their hair stands on end. Whether or not that's that's definitely been noted by many people, including actual journalists from mainstream media that went over to just take photos and do stories about these crop circles. When their cameramen entered some of these crop circles, their cameras drained the battery. Sometimes they had to go through multiple batteries, and they kept draining anomalously. And so really there is a lot of strangeness to some of these crop formations. But when studied, the hoaxes don't have any of these anomalies. They're not found with any of the soil changes. They're not found with any of the changes to the growth rate of these seeds. So they did a few DNA tests they sent off for the plants themselves, and they found that there was a modification of the plants within the circles. Now, this is not a widespread scientific research where they have tested hundreds or thousands of circles. It's simply a very small research group that was a few decades ago. So you're finding all these strange anomalies, including that the real crop circles, as they call them, and the fake crop circles. In the fake crop circles, they are snapped. All of the stems are snapped at the base. It's clear that somebody stomped on them. In the real crop circles, not only are they in these beautiful geometric patterns, not only are they precise, but they also seem to be woven together. They also have these nodes. Sometimes in real crop circle formations, the crop is not bent at the ground level. There have been formations that have been found that the crop is bent 3 feet above ground. The nodes of the stalks of the plants, which we'll show you some photographs, are exploded out. Many people describe this as a microwave radiation or some sort of radiation that essentially expands the water molecules inside the plant until they soften and blow out the nodes, and which is why the plants bend over. But the plants don't die after this happens. Whereas in the hoax crop circle formations, after stepping on all of these stalks, the plants die. They break off and they die. They don't germinate. The seeds don't germinate. So we're seeing a lot of variety and differences in these crop circle formations. There was a video from 1989 in Oliver's Castle in Wiltshire, England, that was recorded by a man named Winston Keach. Now, Winston Keach was researching crop circles, and he sat on a hill adjacent to the field and set up cameras with, I believe, 2 other witnesses. Could be wrong about that, but I believe there was multiple other people there. Now, they reported that in the 2 hours where it was so dark they didn't really have a good view, there was a flash of light near the field. They said it was the only thing they saw that night. The next day, when they reviewed their footage, it showed several objects looping around the field as the crop circle was made underneath of them. This video had been studied by multiple people over the years that never were able to debunk whether this was a manipulated video. It's still widely available. They never showed any digital editing of this video, with the exception that the video was changed. They essentially increased the contrast, so the visibility of the tape, it was dark when this was recorded. They wanted to increase the visibility of the subjects in the video. So we'll show you that video now, and then we'll move on. So some of these videos showing these strange objects near crop formations, they can also include investigation by the military. Multiple helicopters have been seen interacting with these strange UFOs near and close proximity to these crop circle formations, lending much more credence to the crop circle investigators who believe that these formations are created in an anomalous way. The scientific evidence seems to show some vast anomalies. These videos of these interactions between these unknown objects and the formations themselves seem to lend a lot of credibility towards these investigators' argument. And so really these formations, the Chilbolton Formation, the Crabwood Formation, all of these different formations that have been found almost exclusively in England and many abroad, they're showing capabilities that we can't easily replicate. For instance, the Oliver Castle video, supposedly this one formation was formed over 23 acres in about 2 hours. So in a 2 hour duration, 23 acres, if you've ever been on a farm and you know how big 1 acre is, 23-acre formation is enormous to create in 2 hours. You would have to have hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved in something like that. And there's no evidence when you have thousands of people entering a field. There is no evidence left over from some of these formations of any human manipulation of the field. So, where does this really leave us? We have formations that, like the Vitruvian Man, with a butterfly image behind it, showing the evolution, or a lot of people believe is the evolution of man. So who is putting a formation in a field showing a human evolution at this size? You're talking about hundreds of yards across. Some of these formations have been found with hundreds of circles in geometric patterns that are so intricate that they have never been replicated. There have been people that have offered millions of dollars to replicate some of these crop circles over the years. They said, yeah, if you can replicate that in one night, I'll give you $1 million. Nobody has taken them up on their offer, and I think that's for obvious reasons. But all of this information, the DNA tests, Dr. Levengood's research into the anomalies with the soil and the plants themselves, Neil deGrasse Tyson's admission of microwaves laying down the formations and all these things. Where do we really stand? In my personal opinion, I think the best evidence for crop circle formations being anomalous has nothing to do with any of this. I actually think it's the ghost formations. You've never heard of that? Nobody has. It is such a well-kept secret within the crop circle investigation community that most people have never even heard of it. Mainstream media never reports on it. Out of the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of reports from mainstream media about crop circle formations, they put out thousands of reports about Dave and Doug. They interviewed them many times over many years until they eventually passed away. Never once have they ever talked about ghost circle formations and what that means. So essentially in the crop circle community, they have come to the conclusion that if a formation creates a ghost formation, that it is real. And here's how they come to that conclusion. So a ghost circle formation is when you have a crop circle, it's laid out into the field. Sometimes these farmers will actually cut them down just to get people out of the way. And it really doesn't matter whether they're mowed down. It doesn't matter if the field has been changed. Like, for instance, one year it might be wheat, the next year it might be sorghum or corn. After the formation is laid down in the subsequent years, in the exact same location the formation was made, the formation comes back. So this shows that it's not the crops that have been disturbed, it's actually the underlying soil. So when a farmer comes out, they till their field, they lay their seed, they fertilize, they grow a new crop. There is a clear outline, a clear image of the crop circle from the year before that springs up from the ground, and this can happen over the course of many years. I believe one was reported over a 5-year time span. The crop kept coming back, the ghost formation kept coming back in the crop over the years. And farmers realized this was happening, and they found out that if they go out there and they dig up that area and they move the soil out of the area, they won't get a crop circle formation the next year. They won't get a ghost formation. They've also realized that if they bring in new ground, new soil, and lay it over that area, the ghost formations won't appear. I think this is the best evidence for how anomalous crop circles really are. You can disagree with whether you think they're real or fake or hoaxes or aliens or the government, a psyop. It really doesn't matter. When you have a formation that is hundreds of meters in length and width, with dozens, if not hundreds, of symbols, circles, arcs, geometry, when you have something that's that large, that profound, that takes that much time and effort to create, and then you have ghost formations being created year after year in the same field without the subsequent crop being laid down, that shows you that there is a real anomaly here that has not been explained by the scientific community or the mainstream media. And this is something that really needs to be investigated further. If you'd like to support our channel, there'll be links in the description below as well as in the pinned comment. That's the Unacceptable News. Don't like, don't subscribe, just run.